fine examples were passed from one generation to the next.
We keep a lot of ink stones, like different type of ink stones. Ink stones, you must massage it every day. You see, you hold it and you massage. And you'll find when in the winter, when you rub it, very cold, the weather very cold, and hopefully sweat. Why? Because all these acupuncture points from your hand here, you massage, you touch it, and there's a relationship, a friendship, a love with the ink. So you see, this is my biggest ink stone. I brought it back from China. I don't know how heavy it is. It is about, I don't know how many tons it is.
The unique set of tools used by painters influenced the unique look of Chinese paintings. Their painting techniques also heavily influenced the look and composition of these paintings. Many Westerners assume that the Chinese painters had no grasp of Western realistic painting techniques, or if they had, they would have used them. For example, in the year 1804, one English visitor to China reported the Chinese were unable to pencil out a correct outline of many objects, to give body to the same by the application of proper lights and shadows, and to lay on the nice shades of color so as to resemble the tints of nature. Traditional Western painting utilizes a fixed point of view with linear perspective. This means these paintings contain a vanishing point, just where two train tracks, for example, meet on the horizon. Likewise, Western paintings employ a fixed light source to throw shadows. But the Chinese did understand and use these techniques. In fact, ever since the Sung dynasty in the 12th century, there has been a school of Chinese painting that specializes in realistic techniques of perspective and color. This tradition was championed by the Emperor Huizong, who hated the abstract landscapes so much favored by his father. In fact, he ordered them to be used to wipe up the mess in the painting studio. Huizong advocated a strict representational realism. His court painters painted birds and flowers, exquisitely observed, in enamel-bright colors. It is a style full removed from the great landscapes of the 11th century. But many scholars thought the court painters were missing the point. Just as the Sung dynasty painting presented a degree of realism never before matched, the famous scholar official, Su Shi, defended the great Mandarin abstract tradition of Wang Zixi and Fan Quan. One time, while correcting examinations, Su Shi was inspired to paint bamboo, but found himself without black ink. All that was available was the red ink used for correcting student exams. So he used this red ink to paint red bamboo. When he showed this red bamboo to his fellow painters at the academy, they laughed at him and mockingly asked, "Where in the world does bamboo grow red?" The crafty Su Shi replied, "And where in the world does it grow with the colors of black ink?" And then he uttered his famous objection: "Those who discuss painting in terms of lifelikeness have the understanding of a child." This got him in trouble. His calligraphy was banned from the court of Huizong, and his name posted in an official list of enemies. But later Chinese painters revered Su Shi as the champion of the abstract Mandarin painting tradition. After Su Shi, the opposing trends in Chinese painting history were set. From then on, the term Northern School was used to describe those who sought to paint outward appearance with bright realistic colors, and the term Southern School for those who sought to paint inner reality with black ink. The clash of these two schools is nowhere better illustrated than the story of when the Mandarins first saw a Western painting. In the year 1601, after a 20-year wait, European missionaries managed finally to get invited to the Forbidden City because the emperor had heard rumors that they bore fabulous gifts. One Jesuit brought a painting for the emperor, which would be the talk of the court. When he unveiled it, there was a large gasp. They had never seen anything so lifelike. The Mandarins were also impressed by this lifelike painting. But like Westerners, when they first beheld Chinese painting, they said it wasn't art, but rather the work of fine craftsmen. But the emperors had traditionally favored the northern school with its colorful, realistic style. And so, some missionaries actually became members of the Imperial Painting Academy. The most famous of these was Lang Xuning, whose original name was Giuseppe Castiglione. His 8 prize steeds was depicted with near photographic realism, thanks to sophisticated techniques of anatomy and perspective developed in Europe since the Renaissance. But the Mandarin artists remained unimpressed. Like Su Shi centuries before, they felt that these realistic techniques were merely methods of creating an optical illusion. They felt Western painting missed the point, that the true reality of things lies behind the illusion of outward appearances. The Mandarin painters of China rejected representational realistic painting techniques because they failed to realize the first rule of Chinese art, to express the hidden reality behind the illusion of surface appearances. For example, in contrast to Western painting's utilization of a single fixed light source, one finds in Chinese painting a fluid interplay between light and dark, with no single source of illumination. This approach, which may at first seem to reflect a lack of understanding of the physical properties of light, highlights the Chinese painter's emphasis on movement, vitality, and spirit. In addition, Mandarin painters rejected single-point perspective. Unlike a Western landscape, the painting is designed to be looked into rather than looked at. So there is no single vanishing point. Instead, the viewer's eye travels around the scenery like a traveler wandering on foot. Said one 11th century critic, all landscapes should be viewed from the angle of totality, to see the totality of its unending ranges. In fact, many Chinese paintings adopted a moving perspective, a trick no still camera or fixed point of view painting could achieve. Chinese landscape artists would often incorporate different views of the same mountain into the same painting. So, how did they deal with the problem caused by putting different perspectives or views of the same subject right next to each other? Well, one way was to use mist or clouds to harmoniously integrate the different perspectives into a pleasing whole. A Chinese landscape artist wandered around a mountain or a garden, and returning to his scholar's desk, closed his eyes to meditate. He called upon his cultivated memory and deep emotion to paint the mountain from the angle of totality. For the Mandarins, Taoist meditation and artistic creation were inseparable. The idea precedes the brush was their motto. The famous landscape painter Guasi, who painted this magnificent landscape early spring, said, "Wonderfully lofty are these mountains, inexhaustible are their mystery. In order to grasp their creations, one must love them utterly, and never cease contemplating them and wandering among them, storing impressions one by one in the heart. Then, in painting them, the eye will not be aware of the silk, nor the hand consciously wield the brush." In Western paintings, people tend to be the main subject of the painting, and landscape serves more as a backdrop. Now, in Chinese painting, in contrast, the landscape tends to dominate, and people are tiny within it, part of the overall Taoist totality and flow of nature. We have to seek them out in the overall composition. When we do, we may find a solitary fisherman,